Hey guys, how are you? Welcome back to my channel. I know it's been a while since I last uploaded, but I'm finally back with a new tutorial for you guys. Before we get into it, I just want to thank you guys so much for being here and for subscribing. We've grown so much in the last few weeks. It's insane. Thank you guys so much. For today's tutorial, I'm going to show you how I created this Gucci Louis Chanel cake. There's quite a bit to it, but I hope you guys learned a few tips and tricks along the way. Let's get started. For this cake, we want to start off with the high heel and the purse because those two need time to firm up. I'm adding in a little CMC powder to my fondant, and this is going to help speed up the drying process. I want it to be pretty thick because this is what's going to give me my support for the heel. I found a template online for a fondant high heel, and all I did was print it out and then cut it out. And now I'm going to use this as a template for all of my fondant pieces. So I'm going back to the sole template. I'm trimming it down just a little bit, and then I'm going to use this as a template for the red bottom. You're going to glue down the red bottom to the sole of the shoe, and then we're going to put that to the side to dry. And then I went ahead and cut out a tan piece of fondant for the inside sole of the shoe, and now I'm just going to glue the rest of the pieces down. For the heel of the shoe, I don't have a mold for it, so I'm just shaping it into sort of like a golf tee shape, but you do want one side to be flat, and then the very top of it, you're going to trim that down because you want that to be flat as well. Now for the red bottom of the heel, you're going to roll out a piece of thin fondant, and you're going to lay your heel on top and just give it a rough outline, and then you're going to go in and cut that out, and then just glue that onto the bottom of the heel. And then just set the heel to the side until you're ready to glue it to the rest of the shoe. Now for the bag, I have a piece of brown fondant, and I'm just going to shape this until I'm happy with it. You just kind of have to keep working with it until you're satisfied. I cut down the sides because I wanted them to be nice and flat. To get the Louis Vuitton pattern onto this bag, all I did was print out a Louis Vuitton pattern onto wafer paper. Now I'm just cutting it to size, and then I'm just going to glue that down with a little bit of water. And you want to cover all four sides of the bag. So now for the zipper, I have this zipper mold, and I'm going to cut it down because it's a little too large as is, and then I'm just going to glue that to the very top of the bag. And now to cover up the sides where the edible images meet, I'm using my clay extruder, and I'm just extruding out a thin piece of fondant, and then I'm just going to glue this all over the edge. Now for the handle, I'm using my clay extruder again. This time I'm using a larger hole. I'm cutting it down to size. Now what I'm going to do is flatten one end, then I'm going to go over it right down the middle with my stitching tool. I'm tapering the ends a bit, and then I can glue it onto my bag now. Now to move on to the cake, I've already covered all three cakes in fondant. So this first one is my middle tier. I've covered it in a light pink fondant, and now I'm going to give it a quilted pattern. So I have this little quilting tool that I'd use to just lightly indent the quilt. And then I'm going over all those lines with the ruler, and this is just going to deepen that indent. And then once you go all around the cake, you can put the cake back into the fridge, and now we're going to work on the very top tier. So for the top tier, I'm using the square setter set. I'm using the very smallest size, and I'm cutting out light browns and dark brown squares. And this is going to give us that Louis Vuitton checkered pattern. So to get perfect squares, I like to drape the fondant over the cutter, go over it with my rolling pin, and then just clean up the edges with my finger. Now to stick these onto the cake, I'm just brushing a little water all around the cake and just going in a pattern. the very top of the cake, I rolled out a light piece of brown fondant, cut it out into a circle that's the size of the cake, and I'm just smoothing that on top. And then you're just going to continue with the pattern all the way up. Now for this tier, I printed out the Gucci pattern onto an edible paper. I used wafer paper, but I would suggest that you use icing sheets instead. Once you put the wafer paper into the fridge and then take it out, it tends to get wrinkly. And now to stick the edible image to the sides of the cake, you're just going to brush on either a little bit of piping gel or a little water, and then just stick that right on. Now for the Gucci stripe, I didn't record this, but all I did was roll out a thin piece of green fondant, cut that into a thick strip, and then I rolled out another piece of red fondant, cut that into a strip about half of the size of the green one, and then just glued those onto each other. Now to stack the cake, I'm using bubble tea straws and a little bit of buttercream in between each tier. Now we're going to move on to all the logos that are going to go on the cake. What I did was print out Gucci, Chanel, and Louis Vuitton's logo on regular printer paper, cut those out, and I'm using these as templates. Now for the Louis Vuitton logo, I've cut out a tag for it, and I'm just going to glue my Louis Vuitton logo directly onto this. I used the printed out template itself to kind of mark where I need to glue it onto, just so that I would make sure that it was centered correctly. And you want to make sure to keep your printed templates handy, because you can always use these as a guide to make sure that everything is lined up correctly. For the logos, I cut out the Gucci and Louis Vuitton out of white fondant because those are going to be colored with gold later on. For the Chanel logo, I cut it out of black fondant. For the Chanel logo, you're just going to glue this directly onto the center of your pink tier. And then once again, just go back in with the printed template and make sure everything is lined up correctly. And now to finish up our Gucci tier, I've used my fondant extruder to extrude out a thick piece of brown fondant, and I'm just going to glue this all over the edge. Now to finish off the high heel, we're going to size down the heel, and then you're just going to use a little water to glue that together. Set that to the side for a few hours so that it can completely firm up. Now I'm going in and painting my Gucci and Louis logos with this gold luster. And for the Louis Vuitton tag, I wanted to have a change, so I'm using this Vuitton mold. And it's a pretty thin mold, so it tends to break. But that's okay, because you can just paste the fondant together onto the cake itself. Now to finish this off, we're just going to glue on the high heel in the bag. And I didn't show it, but I went back in and I added some pearls to the quilted pattern, and then I also made a number 16 tag. So after you've done all of that, your cake is finally complete. And I know this is a really lengthy tutorial, but it is a very time-consuming cake. But thank you guys so much for watching. If you guys have any questions, comments, concerns, leave that all down below, and I will see you guys next time.